Howdy folks, it's Tato the Hunting Gear Guy. This is a Jericho 941F. It's a surplus one, so it's not brand new, although this is a particularly not well-worn version that I've got here. I picked this up from Tundra Supply here in Edmonton. And these things are fairly inexpensive. The Jericho is an Israeli-made CZ75 variant. Let's go with the variant, although it shares a lot of the same parts with the CZ75 or Tanfoglio kind of a thing. Our magazine is empty and our chamber's empty, so we're good to take a closer look at this thing. Now, as a CZ75 variant, these things have a couple of things going for them. One is that, well, geez, some of them are DA/SA, some of them are SA only, some of them are DA only. It really depends on where you get them. So what does that mean? Single action is when the hammer's cocked. You typically use the safety to make sure that the gun is safe. When you fire, we just checked that chamber, it's empty. When you fire, the action reciprocates and then you're back to single action. So you've got a nice, short, crisp trigger pull and it's all good. DA is the second strike, or sometimes you would decock the gun when you make it ready. So you might load the mag, rack it, and then you might decock the gun, depending on where you are, and yada, yada, yada. And then you've got a long double action where you're cocking the hammer and releasing it in one shot. So some of the CZ75s are a DA/SA gun, which means you can do that for your first shot, and then after that you've got single actions. Some of these Jerichos are DA/SA, like this one. Some of them are DA only, some of them are SA only. Food for thought, I guess. Now the Jericho's a pretty heavy gun. With magazine, empty magazine, these things are 2.45 pounds. A lot of that weight's good. I wouldn't want to carry it like concealed carry. Not that you can in Canada anyways, but I wouldn't want to carry this thing all day. Like, it's a lot of weight, but for sports shooting, it's great. There's a lot of weight that's actually forward on the gun because it's got that nice big dust cover in there that's taking quite a bit of weight on there. That's a good spot for the weight. If you look at a Shadow 2, that's where they're trying to put most of their weight is right here, just underneath the barrel. So works great for shootability on it. Speaking of shootability, the DA/SA trigger is actually pretty decent. Why don't we pull a reading right now? Let's start with the SA. Hammer cocked. Let's see. I got 4.5 pounds out of this thing last time. Let's find out how much we get this time. I like not being able to look at it and see what it is. Okay, 4 pounds off that one. Not bad. Let's roll right into the double action pull. This is going to be a little bit harder, a little bit. Oh, 10 pounds. Let's try doing that a little bit slower. 11 pounds, somewhere around 10.5, 11 pounds on that double action. Quite a bit of grit on it. Pretty grabby there. The single action is quite a bit nicer. And then reset on it is pretty long compared to my Shadow 2. But this is a combat pistol. I mean, that's kind of apples and oranges trying to compare this to a competition pistol. But this is a CZ75. There are spring kits you can get for this thing. If you want to make this thing better, you can, and the aftermarket and gunsmithing capabilities on something like this are actually pretty good. You take a gunsmith that knows how to tune shadows and whatever, sick them on this thing, and they will be able to make it shoot better. It won't shoot as good as the better gun, but it'll shoot better, a lot better, and with other springs in this thing tuned up, it will lighten that trigger pull and make for a nicer shooting gun as well. Now, in terms of this gun, if you look at it, it actually says IMI, Israeli, Military Industries. That's the old name. The new name is IWI. That's what's on this magazine here. The magazine it came with is one of these plastic metal, I don't really like these. One of the reasons I don't like this plastic, it's actually like a little bit proud on the surface there. So in this gun, they don't drop free. I don't know if that's like on purpose or if that's just crappy design, but this is a CZ75 magazine. I've got CZ75 magazines. I've got Mekgar magazines for my Shadow, and look, they work just fine. A little bit tight in there, but as long as you're putting it in there with force, it's going to lock in there just fine. And drops free just fine too, so that's probably what I'll use on mine. Shooting this thing at the range, I had a couple of jams. Now, I think it's because this one just hasn't been run that much. There's some out there that are well-loved. The advantage of getting one that's well-loved is that it's worked in. If you think about what a gunsmith would do to a new gun to smooth it out, they're going to smooth the slide to rail fit, for example. Now, if you get a well-loved gun, it will have done that lots of times, loading, unloading, getting ready for the day kind of a thing, or shooting at practice and that kind of thing. So they'll have a smoother slide to frame fit. The hammer will be nicely smoothed off for where it hits the slide. All that stuff will be smoother on a well-loved surplus gun. Controls on this thing are pretty big and chunky, which you might like. That might be something that you're after. Found for myself, they didn't really bind in with my grip, so I didn't mind them that much. I didn't get my hand on the slide release or anything like that. Like with some guns, the SIG 226 comes to mind. The thing's terrible for, my thumb just wants to ride on the slide stop. This one, it was fine. I didn't find any interference there. The safety is big enough. If you want to run that thumb high on the safety, you can do that. I don't really do that on purpose. I just kind of grab the gun and whatever goes, goes. The sights are a 3-dot affair, 2 dots at the back, 1 at the front. You'll see that that rear sight is square on both the front and the back. I think that's so that you can one-handed rack this thing. So let's say you load a new magazine in and you want to rack the slide. You find yourself a flat surface. So let's say one of your arms is blown off and you can grab that and rack it. Sorry, I should show that so you can see it. And rack the slide one-handed. I think that's what it's for, because you don't really see these style sights except on the cheapest, like Tokarev has a flat sight like this. Most of them have like a angled or something like that, so you can holster it and that kind of a thing. Personally, I'm going to black out my rear sights with Sharpie and just run the one front. I find this visually distracting. I just want one dot that I'm focusing on. I put it in the notch, I press the trigger. So I'm going to black out these rear dots with a Sharpie and just shoot it like that. Now, should you get a surplus Jericho 941F, and if so, why? There's a couple of things I can think of. So one, you get a metal gun. Right now, if you look at the price point of these things is right around, I've got this one for 520 Canadian pesos. I don't know, in the US it's probably like 450 or something like that. So they're fairly inexpensive. The other guns that this would be competing with are going to be polymer, like Glock knockoffs. They aren't going to have as great a trigger. They're not going to have nearly as much weight either. So if I wanted to competition shoot, this is going to be a better option. It's heavier gun. That's going to be better for IPSC, USPSA, that kind of a thing. This will fit into production division with the DASA on it. And it might be good for that. It's good for that for a second reason as well. Because this is a CZ75 clone, and because it runs this CZ75 magazines, if I started with this, let's say I'm a beginner on a budget, I get my gun belt, my holster, my magazines, I'm careful with my choice around the holster, I can go from this gun to a Shadow 2 and just swap the gun. The holster could be the same. You have to check to make sure that your holster is going to work for both guns. The magazines are going to be the same. The magazine pouches are going to be the same. Belt's going to be the same. So you could very quickly go from like running one of these with no mods, just running one of these things, to a better gun, maybe a couple of years into your shooting. And you'd be like, you could probably turn around and sell this thing for exactly what you paid for it, depending on what kind of deal you got on it, right? So it could be a very easy upgrade in that case. All in all, aside from like the weight and the trigger, the fact that that's good, It's the CZ75 platform. There is boatloads of aftermarket available for these things. Check out my article. I've got like a couple of ideas there, but really like the sky's the limit when it comes to these things. If you do end up getting an SA only or a DA only, just keep in mind if you want to move it to DA SA, you might have to get some parts, just a couple of parts to make that happen and get it back to this the standard DA SA configuration. Cool guns, nice and heavy. I love the grip on them. Really a lot of fun to shoot, and I think you should get one, and that's why I got one. Thanks for watching.